So what is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be reading a very special chapter of Dragon Ball Super Chapter 103, A Legacy Towards the Future, and I have a lot to say about this chapter, so let's just jump straight into it. So we go straight into the action with Gohan Beast facing off against his father. Gohan Beast's aggression is made very clear in these first few panels, and the offensive capabilities of Gohan Beast are something that is very, very focused on in this chapter. We'll get a bit more into that here in a minute. And the paneling for this first part of the fight, where Goku is knocked flying backwards by Gohan, was really, really good. I was reading this on the Viz website, and if you look at how the pages are formatted when they're right next to each other, it does have a really good look to it. It looks really good. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is this panel with Goku where he says, "Not bad, Gohan. There's that intense, latent potential you were always packing." Now, this chapter doesn't give us an outward cookie cutter explanation for Gohan Beast, but Gohan Beast is actually slowly explained to us as this chapter progresses, and this is just one of the panels where they're sort of expressing to us the idea of what Gohan Beast is. Now, as we all know, Gohan had his potential unlocked by the Elder Kai, and so the reason he can tap into pretty much all of his latent potential at will is due to the fact that the old Kai essentially played on Gohan's ability to bring out all of his latent potential through rage, something he's done since he's a child. And due to the fact that his potential is unlocked, once Gohan experienced one of his classic awakenings while in the ultimate state, Gohan Beast is the result. He has essentially tapped into all of his latent power and beyond, which is what Gohan Beast is. And a lot of people have been asking me if Gohan Beast is limitless in this way, and that does seem to be the case. It does seem to be the case that pretty much Gohan Beast can tap into boundless chi using his rage. So this isn't a godly technique, and they sort of expand on that later on in this chapter, but it is a technique that takes advantage of Gohan's talents specifically, but we'll get into that more here in just a few minutes. So the first thing I really want you to pay attention to is this statement from Goku where he says, "Except this time you molded it into something through training. You've changed." Now, I want you to understand. Now, this is something I've wanted to talk about for a while, something I really want to establish and make clear. There is this trend amongst the fandom where people mix up the narrative purpose of Goku and Gohan's character, and they think that Gohan should go through some sort of training that makes him stronger, rather than taking the path that he's been shown to take from the very beginning, where Gohan essentially has all the power he needs. He just needs to learn to control it and implement it correctly. People have this weird idea that Gohan, narratively, is supposed to be like Goku, where he's training all the time to get stronger, and that has never been the case with Gohan's character. If you go back and you look at Goku's character progression has always been centered around learning from masters, facing different opponents, his love of martial arts, and the fact that he was a low-class warrior who used martial arts to surpass genetically superior beings such as Vegeta, and in this case, we all know Goku will eventually surpass Gohan again. Gohan is genetically superior. He is a mutant. He is a hybrid, and he has a specific ability that is catered to who and what he is. From the very beginning of Gohan's introduction as a character, he has had all the power he needs to do what he wants due to the fact that he has the special ability to awaken all of this latent potential that he was born with as a hybrid. So the training that Goku is talking about here is Gohan not just keeping himself in fighting shape, that is important, but also his ability to fight as a warrior and use his power correctly, which we've seen him have trouble with in the past. We saw him have trouble with that whenever he became a Super Saiyan 2 and whenever he became Ultimate Gohan. So his training has been centered around not just tapping into and maintaining that power, but controlling it. That has always been the main focus of Gohan's character, is that he has always had all the power that he needs. He just needs to learn to tap into it, use it, and control it. He's not like Goku, where Goku was born with a really ridiculously small power level and then worked his way up to the tier of the gods. That's not what Gohan is. That's never been the themes of his character. Gohan is a freak of nature. That has always been the case. That has always been the focus. That's always what's made him unique in comparison to Goku. And so it's very important to establish that when you're analyzing Gohan and Goku's characters respectively and comparing the two, is that they're different characters. They have different narrative purposes, and that's what makes them unique and special characters. So there's a few things that happen in this chapter that are similar to what I thought was going to happen, but not exactly the same. So if you remember in one of my previous videos, I predicted that Goku would use True Ultra Instinct against Gohan, and that does not happen. Instead, Goku has managed, which this is something I knew was coming eventually, I just didn't think it would come this quickly. It happened. As a matter of fact, everything that happens in this chapter that is different than what I thought was going to happen is things that I thought were going to happen later on down the line. So everything just happened way quicker than I expected in that sense. So Goku specifically says here that when it comes to training, he doesn't mess around. And then he takes this angelic pose, and he floats up in the air, and then he awakens. And when he does this, you'll notice that Goku goes on the offensive. Now, why is this important, and what exactly did Goku do here? Well, Goku has been doing essentially what Vegeta and him have been working on together and implementing more effective offensive fighting moves into his body so that way he can use them in Ultra Instinct automatically. So essentially, True Ultra Instinct and the training that Goku has been doing with Vegeta both serve the purpose of helping Goku use more aggressive movements. When Goku is in True Ultra Instinct, he uses those aggressive movements automatically. But whenever he is fighting in base with Vegeta, the whole entire purpose of that is to imagine those moves over and over and over and over again. Work on these super well done tactical offensive techniques, which is why it's important that Goku is fighting Vegeta specifically, because Vegeta is a very aggressive fighter. So Goku is learning from Vegeta in that way, which I think is super awesome. But you'll notice that Goku immediately goes into a more offensive form of Ultra Instinct, and that is because he has implemented a more aggressive tactic and moveset into his Ultra Instinct, which is something that we told him that he should do in the Granola arc. So that's what you're seeing here. You're seeing Goku use a more effective fighting strategy due to the fact that he's been working on this training with Vegeta and his training with Ultra Instinct in general. You'll notice that Goku is just finessing Gohan in this case, because he has been doing what martial artists generally do, and he's been imprinting moves into his mind, practicing those moves with his body, and then after he's practiced them with his body enough, they've become second nature, and he is essentially implementing those moves when necessary in Ultra Instinct at this point. So here is the other thing that happened way earlier than I thought it was going to happen. So Gohan's special technique, right, where he taps into more of his boundless potential through rage. And then, I mean, he is ridiculous. Gohan Beast is an absolute monster. Like, the way it's even portrayed here, he is just an absolute monster. He is he is a freak of nature. Like, he is something that I don't think, this is on the par of a god technique itself. It's just unique to Gohan in its own way. This is very, very similar to a god technique in terms of how Gohan is implementing it. I don't think people really have got a grasp on just how special this technique actually is. This is like an aggressive god technique. It may not be considered a god technique, but the way it is implemented through using a mindset to tap into more power, that is the same thing that Ultra Ego and Ultra Instinct do. It's just not of godly origin. It's Gohan's technique that he crafted in his own way. And what I originally thought was going to happen is I thought that, and I would have loved if this would have happened. This is the reason I thought True Ultra Instinct was going to come into the mix, because I thought that if Goku and Gohan fought in Goku's True Ultra Instinct, that Gohan could learn from that and create a technique similar to what he already has here, and that it could also help Goku with his more aggressive form of Ultra Instinct. And that still does happen in the sense that what Goku experiences here is going to help him learn more offensive capabilities, but Gohan has essentially already figured out how to do what I thought he was going to do by training with Goku. He has already figured out how to implement what causes Gohan Beast as an actual physical martial arts technique. So you'll notice here that he says that he boosted his chi to the point where he might snap while still maintaining control. That's how he would best describe it. Now, that's very similar to how he transformed into Gohan Beast in the previous chapters, but it's also centered around what I was talking about in my last two videos, which is the idea of emotional content. Okay? He is not using actual rage to perform this technique. Rage is a factor. But the fact that he maintains control and instead doesn't snap, that is the emotional content that I've been describing in the last couple chapters. Gohan has already learned how to implement it. He didn't need to actually learn from Goku to learn how to implement it. So it really just speaks to Gohan's character and how he's underrated as a martial artist. He exceeded my expectations in that way. It makes me appreciate Gohan's character more because he invented this technique on his own. And don't get me wrong, Piccolo helped him. The Makanko Sampo that Gohan pulled off against Cell Max is a very similar principle. But Gohan has essentially learned how to take advantage of the same boosts that he used to get all the time when he was a kid, when he would get upset and he would get angry, or whenever he would activate his fight or flight reflexes, like whenever Piccolo threw him against a rock. He's figured out how to implement that at will, using his boundless potential to his advantage, and essentially crafting his own special technique. So here's another way that they expand on what Gohan Beast is. So essentially, they're pointing out here that Gohan is not in a Super Saiyan form. This is not a divine technique, which essentially tells you that this is a mutation caused by Gohan's Saiyan blood without Super Saiyan, implementing what the old Kai did to him when he unlocked his potential. Because you have to remember, when he unlocked his potential, that's the entire reason that his rage can reach so deep into the depths of his power and pull it out. Because otherwise, Gohan was always limited by his potential. That's what it means to unlock his potential, is he no longer has a limiter in the sense that when he experiences these rage boosts, the amount of power that he can pull out is unlocked. And that's what Gohan Beast is. It's taking advantage of his Saiyan blood, the fact that his Saiyan blood has always allowed him as a hybrid to, when angry or when under the effects of his fight or flight reflexes, tap into the depths of his power. The combination of Gohan's biology and the ritual are the reason that he can do these things. So Whis goes on to say that it's not a divine technique, and it's not. It's not Ultra Instinct or Ultra Ego. Ultra Instinct and Ultra Ego essentially represent two different practices in Budo. The idea of destroying your opponent just to destroy them with no conscious malicious intentions, and the idea of letting your instincts run and do whatever they want. That essentially embodies Goku's character, and it's the reason that he just follows his heart and his nature. So those two characters are catered to two different aspects of Budo, and this is catered to an entirely different thing. This is catered to a concept in martial arts where you essentially take advantage of your fight or flight reflexes, your rage, in combat without losing yourself to them. This is a great homage to the teachings of Bruce Lee. It's super awesome, but it's not a divine technique in the sense that it comes from the gods and that it produces God Chi. It is a technique that only Gohan is capable of due to his biology and the fact that he had his potential unlocked, which is why we said that he would call it a singular talent all his own, because this really is a Gohan exclusive thing. It's just that due to who Gohan is and the events that he's been through, this technique is on the level of the gods. Okay, it's not a divine technique in the sense that it's not from divine origin, but it is a god technique in the sense that Gohan is insane. Like he's an insane entity. He is an insane being. He is like a complete anomaly, freak of nature. He himself is like a god. Okay, so that's what makes this whole thing extremely special and very well done and very cool. Okay, so this scene, this is not talked about enough. I have not seen this talked about enough amongst the fandom. Broly getting excited through watching Gohan and Goku fight from a sports-like perspective says a lot about not just Broly, the Saiyan race as a whole. Okay, so Broly, according to Nagamine, is a representation of the true nature of the Saiyans. So is Goku. That's something that's been talked about in Super Dragon Ball Heroes countless times. It's also been talked about in promotional material and stuff, the true nature of the Saiyans. I mean, it's been talked about in Super. But Broly and Goku were stated by Nagamine to be an example of the true nature of the Saiyans. So what this means is, it's very similar to what I talked about in my previous video how Broly is a representation of the progression of Saiyans in the Broly movie itself. Broly here is exemplifying to us what the Saiyans used to be, and so is Goku. Before they were corrupted by their ego, they enjoyed combat as a sport and as something that they just loved to do. It was only when they were corrupted by their ego, by their fight or flight reflexes, by their survival instincts, did they become evil. And this is something that I've talked about before, but the very idea of the Super Saiyan that Vegeta talks about on Namek is essentially idolizing and deifying anger, your fight or flight reflexes. The Super Saiyan, the god that the Saiyans worshipped, was their fight or flight reflexes. It was the Super Saiyan. It was their rage. Because the Super Saiyan only behaved in the way that Vegeta spoke of because they were under the effect of their anger and of their fight or flight reflexes. So the Super Saiyan of Legend is literally just anger, wrath, and your fight or flight reflexes exemplified and deified. And that is the thing that corrupted the Saiyan race all those years ago, is that idea. And it's also the thing that corrupts the legendary Super Saiyan every time they're born. And we see that with Broly. So that idea is extremely interesting to me. I don't think it's talked about enough. I think it's a ridiculously cool concept. I don't think Toriyama got near enough credit for implementing that concept in that way. You know, this is a Kung Fu themed series, and your anger and your fight or flight reflexes are a major, major talking point and huge part of martial arts and Kung Fu. And I just think it's an underrated aspect of the storytelling. So Goku actually surprisingly shoves Gohan away. So essentially, this fight never got super serious. It never got serious enough that true Ultra Instinct was needed. So this was definitely just a friendly sparring match between Gohan and Goku, but they were definitely both at full power. And Goku himself acknowledges later that the goal here was never to beat Gohan, and he also acknowledges that he's just happy to have more progress to make, which in itself tells you that Gohan showed Goku that he could make more progress, which means Gohan is ridiculously strong. If you want to go into the whole power scaling thing, that's enough to tell you that Gohan is ridiculously strong. Now, the Gohan Beast versus Ultra Instinct Goku fight was amazing. It definitely paid homage to the teachings of Bruce Lee, because again, Dragon Ball is named after Enter the Dragon from Bruce Lee, so the series constantly pays homage to that film. And the way the offensive and defensive aspects taught by martial artists and Kung Fu artists and Bruce Lee himself were portrayed and expressed to us through this fight was very well done. It didn't happen exactly like I thought it would, because again, Goku, he's farther in his training than I thought he would be. Gohan is way more of a prodigy as a martial artist, and I just didn't give either of them enough credit in that sense, especially Gohan. Like, the fact that Gohan came up with that technique without any help. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure he probably implemented some stuff that he learned from his father in the past to come up with that technique, not just Piccolo. Piccolo is definitely the primary factor in terms of, like, how Gohan has achieved this, but, like, you know, I fully expected Goku to help Gohan craft the technique that he's already come up with. He already came up with this technique on his own. So that just speaks to Gohan as a martial artist, and it just makes him so impressive, and it makes me appreciate his character so much more. So Goku has Broly and Gohan fight. Now, this is something that I've been really excited to talk about. So, you know, on my channel, I've been talking about Broly's new form coming, and it's going to be Broly's fight or flight reflexes combined with Super Saiyan. And what I mean by that is, your anger is a part of your fight or flight reflexes, but that's not what I mean. I mean Broly's ability to adapt and grow in real time in battle, not only to his opponent's fighting style, but also in chi level as he's fighting his opponent. He's essentially going to have a boundless Super Saiyan transformation. That's what's coming from Broly. And that's what they're hinting at here with this notion of a beast fitting Broly. Okay, Broly's going to have his own beast form. He's going to have his own beast transformation, but it's going to be branching off of Super Saiyan, okay? So instead of it branching off of Gohan's potential, like Gohan Beast did, the ultimate state, Broly's form is a variation of that, centered around Super Saiyan, okay? So it's like the opposite of what Gohan has been saying he was going to do when he tells people, oh, I'm going to evolve in my own way. I'm no longer going to rely on Super Saiyan. It's literally the exact opposite branch for Broly. He's like, I am full-blooded Saiyan. I'm going to use Super Saiyan, and I'm going to have my own enhanced, mutated version of it. And that's going to make Gohan and Broly's dynamic that much cooler, right? Because it's like two different branches that are their own special mutations facing off against one another in the future. It's so exciting. So excited to see it. I'll probably talk about that more in another video, but yeah, I want to essentially express the basic concept here. And that's what's coming for Broly in the future, and that's what they're talking about here. So, Broly learning to tap into Super Saiyan through Gohan Beast. Now, this is something that I predicted in one of my previous videos. I knew this was coming. I knew that Gohan wasn't going to actually teach Broly this, but Broly was going to essentially just see Gohan do it and learn it that way. I knew that's how they were going to do it, and I knew that Gohan wasn't going to be how he controlled that power, because as I said in my previous video, Goku and Vegeta are all Broly needs because he's themed around the themes of the legendary Super Saiyan. All three of these characters, Goku, Vegeta, and Gohan, represent three different aspects of Broly's character that he needed to reach this level. So, Goku is a representation of Broly's nature, okay, the true nature of the Saiyans, right? And Goku, at the end of the Broly film, essentially helped Broly maintain that nature. And then he continued to also help him maintain that nature when he was teaching him to control himself through his rage in previous chapters. Vegeta is a representation of his ego, his identity, maintaining his ego and his identity in battle through the Super Saiyan transformation. That's what Vegeta helped Goku do on Namek, when Goku embraced his identity as an Earthling martial artist while in Super Saiyan to control himself through it. That's essentially what Vegeta helped Broly do. And so, because Goku is a representation of your nature, and Vegeta is a representation of your ego, it's only appropriate that Gohan be a representation of his rage, which is why he helped Broly achieve this power. And Beerus acknowledges that Broly still has some growth to do in terms of controlling his energy, but that's something that they've talked about in promotional material previously. So that's something I already knew that they were going to talk about. But yeah, so this whole thing, the Gohan Beast versus Broly stuff was awesome. And here's something else that I find interesting. A lot of people were talking about, the God of Destruction candidates being talked about a lot. I do think something's coming with that. I've talked about in my previous videos about how Frieza and the Gods of Destruction were name-dropped side by side in the Dragon Ball Super superhero film. There's a reason for that. Stuff with the Gods of Destruction are coming, and with Frieza. But the reason they keep expanding on it in the way they are here is because they're essentially trying to point out that, as Beerus pointed out in the Granola arc, a destroyer destroys just to destroy. Okay? So they can't have any other motives. That's why taking advantage of their instincts and their fight-or-flight reflexes' ability to take away motive from their use of combat is so important in that aspect. But the only person who's adept at that at all is Vegeta. He's the only person who has made it a point to try and learn to destroy just to destroy. He's the only person that they played on in that way at all. Goku is kind of adept at that already because he practices Budo. That's what makes Vegeta's development as an Ultra Ego user a bit more special in that sense. He's like an exaggerated... He and Beerus, just like Goku and Whis, are an exaggerated aspect of yin and yang and the two primary functions of Budo and martial arts. So we get this really funny, like, Saiyan Battle Royale, which a lot of people took way too seriously, like, scaling-wise. Like, you've got Super Saiyan Broly fighting base Trunks and Goten, base Goku jumping in. Like, this is like a gag. This is not meant to be taken seriously in any way. At this point in the fight, they've stopped taking scaling seriously, and it's just supposed to be a homage to the Saiyan race. It's just a cool little Battle Royale homage to the Saiyan race. That's what it is. And I loved it. And the irony of Beerus' planet getting destroyed, I can't exaggerate how hilarious that is, too. Like, there's all kinds of, like, little subtle jokes and nods to not only the extremely expansive past of the Dragon Ball series, because remember, when you read this stuff, you're supposed to treat it as an extension of everything that's already happened in the series. People have this really bad habit of treating a chapter as, like, treating each chapter like its own separate thing, which it is, but it's also an extension of all the events that happened in the past. You're supposed to treat it that way. And you can't really enjoy it to its full extent if you don't treat it that way. Because there's all kinds of, like, really cool homages and nods to things. But, like, like, for example, in Battle of Gods, Beerus straight up threatening to destroy planet Earth makes this scenario ironic because the Saiyans are literally destroying his planet. And it's funny. It's hilarious. It's awesome. And, the Red Ribbon Army, the significance of the Red Ribbon Army, the significance of Gohan and Piccolo and Goku's relationship. The simple fact that Goku shows up and talks about how Piccolo has been reborn. That's a freaking awesome line. That's an awesome line that acknowledges not only what Piccolo has been through when he was literally reborn after Goku defeated him, but also the change that he's went through. He literally has been reborn thanks to Goku, thanks to his relationship with Goku, which is just extremely cool. Like, there's a lot of things about this chapter that are very, very underrated in that sense. Like, here's another really cool one. So, like, Goku, people have this, like, idea that he, like, legit forgot Pan. And it's not that he forgot Pan, okay? He knows who Pan is. He remembers his granddaughter, okay? It's just that it's the same thing as, like, whenever Goku met Chi-Chi all those years ago, and then he forgot who she was. Because Goku is an alien. And his brain is always thinking about combat. You literally see that here when he's, like, challenging Piccolo to a fight, like, immediately when he gets there. Okay? Goku takes a second to reaffirm information in his mind. It takes him a second. Okay? Because he's a pure Saiyan, he has a pure drive to fight and get stronger all the time. And it takes him a second sometimes to essentially balance himself, pull himself out of that, and just, like, focus on what's going on around him. It, like, sometimes it takes him a second. This happened in Z. This happened countless. This happened in the original Dragon Ball. This has happened a bunch of different times. And it's funny. It's not meant to be taken super seriously. You're not supposed to, like, Goku is the purest character in the universe. Okay, he's pure of heart. He's literally like what the series has as a representation of the ideal mortal, right? So they're not trying to, like, paint Goku in a bad light. They're just playing on how pure he is as a character. And it's like I said, it's also a funny homage to whenever Chi-Chi got upset with him and tried to defeat him in the World Martial Arts Tournament. Pan literally, like, attacks Goku. So it's very clear that they're pointing out that Pan's like her grandma and that she's like her mom. She loves martial arts. Like, the fact that Pan is a schoolgirl martial artist, like, the fact that she's, like, learning stuff in a prestigious school while also practicing martial arts is also a really cool play on her character, in the sense that she's just like her mother and her father, right? So there's so much stuff to appreciate about this little exchange. People like to, like, focus on the negativity, but it's like people take things like that just way too seriously. With that being said, the chapter ends off with Piccolo waving goodbye to Pan's teacher as he flies away, and a little note from the English staff mourning the passing of Akira Toriyama. And this was really surreal. This was very impactful, especially considering one of the last times we saw Toribot, he was literally wearing a Piccolo outfit. We know the association between Piccolo and Toriyama Sensei. But overall, this chapter was extremely special. Dragon Ball Super is going hiatus for at least a month, but I have other things to talk about that I've been saving for a rainy day, so there will be content on the channel. So that was my review of this chapter. I hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts and my insight. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for all the support, and I appreciate everything you guys do for this channel.